When I first met my girlfriend, things felt easy. We clicked almost instantly. Same sense of humor, same taste in movies, same love for late-night snacks and aimless drives. It wasn't long before we started spending most of our time together. Weekends blurred into weekdays, and it just made sense to move in together after about a year. Now, I'm 28 and work in tech. I'm not a millionaire, but I make good money, solid salary, good benefits, occasional bonuses. She's 27 and teaches elementary school. Anyone who knows the education system knows that teachers are severely underpaid for the amount of work they do. But she's passionate. She loves those kids, and I admire that. When we moved in, we had that classic conversation couples always have. How do we split bills? At the time, we were both eager to do the right thing. She insisted we split everything 50-50ths. Rent, groceries, dates, even toilet paper. I didn't push back. Honestly, I respected her for wanting to carry her weight. I thought it was fair, even noble. But lately, I don't know. Something feels off. At first, I didn't notice anything. We both paid our half of the rent, picked up groceries together, took turns buying dinner. But as time went on, I started to notice little things. She'd say no to eating out more often. She'd skip getting coffee on the way to work, even though it used to be her ritual. I caught her checking her bank app a few times after paying her share of the rent. And once, I saw her cancel plans with her friend because she said she couldn't swing it this month. It hit me. She's struggling. And here I am, comfortably covering my half while still saving, investing, even treating myself now and then. Meanwhile, she's probably dipping into her savings just to keep up. And for what? To maintain a 50-50th split that only looks fair on paper? One night, I finally said something. I told her, hey, I don't think we should do 50-50ths anymore. Not like this. Maybe we can do it based on income or something that makes more sense. She went silent for a bit. Then she said, so, you want to pay more than me now? I nodded, not sure what to say. I just didn't want her to suffer trying to keep up with a system that clearly wasn't working. Her face changed. I don't want to be kept, she said. I don't want to feel like a charity case. I want to be your equal. I tried to explain that it's not about control or power. It's not about treating her like she's incapable. It's about being realistic, about being kind to each other. But she didn't seem to hear that part. She said, I grew up watching women rely on men, and I promised myself I'd never let that happen to me. I want to stand on my own. And I get that. I really do. I respect her independence. But I also can't sit here and pretend that this situation is working when I can clearly see it's not. Isn't real equality about being fair based on our real situations, not just pretending everything is exactly equal when it's clearly not? I'm stuck. She's an amazing partner in so many ways. I love her, but I don't want money to become the thing that quietly drives us apart. And I'm not trying to control her or make her feel less. I just don't think love should mean going broke to keep up appearances. I'm trying to do the right thing. But now I'm wondering if I messed up by saying anything at all. After that conversation, things felt different. Not like she was angry or giving me the cold shoulder, but there was this weird tension in the air. The kind you can't exactly explain, but you feel it in the silence between words, in the way someone turns their back a second longer than usual, in how often they say, I'm fine, but you know they are not. She didn't bring it up again, and I didn't either, for a while. I figured she just needed some time to sit with it. Maybe she'd think it through and see I wasn't trying to insult her. I thought we'd revisit the conversation later, maybe laugh about how awkward it got. But that didn't happen. Instead, she doubled down. She insisted on paying exactly half of everything, to the cent. Even if I tried to cover groceries or grab the bill at dinner, she'd Venmo me before we got home. If I brought home takeout, she'd ask how much a half was. It wasn't like that before. It used to feel like we were a team, not accountants keeping score. I tried to be patient. I kept telling myself, she just wants to feel equal. She doesn't want to be dependent. Respect that. But the longer it went on, the more confused I felt. I mean, what's the point of being in a relationship if we can't support each other when times get hard? Isn't that what partnership is about? One night, I came home from work and saw her sitting at the table, surrounded by bills and receipts. Her laptop was open, and she was typing something into a spreadsheet. I asked her what she was doing. She looked up and said, "Just making sure everything balances for the month." I walked over and glanced at her screen. She had tabs for rent, utilities, groceries, even gas for the car we share sometimes. She was tracking every dollar, down to who paid for snacks at the movies. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, feeling kind of helpless. Finally, I said, "This doesn't look fair anymore. It looks exhausting." She sighed and said, "I don't want to owe you anything. I don't want you thinking I'm freeloading." That hit me harder than I expected. "I don't think that," I said. "I've never thought that." But I could tell she didn't fully believe me. Not because she thinks I'm a bad guy, but because she's been burned before. She's told me a little about her past, how she grew up watching her mom struggle after her dad left, how money was always used as a weapon in relationships, how she once had an ex who made her feel worthless because she couldn't afford fancy dates or contribute the same way he could. Maybe this wasn't just about me. Maybe it was about all that stuff she carries around but doesn't always talk about. Still, I couldn't ignore how I was starting to feel. I don't mind helping. I don't mind paying a little more. I don't even care if it means I'm contributing 70% and she's doing 30%. I make more. It's only fair. What I care about is feeling like we're in this together. Not keeping score, not living like roommates with shared expenses, but partners. So a few days later, I brought it up again. This time, I tried a different approach. I said, "Look, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I also don't want you to struggle in silence while I'm doing just fine. That doesn't feel like love to me. That feels like pretending." She didn't say anything for a moment. She just looked at me. Then she said quietly, "But what if you change your mind one day? What if you start resenting me?" That's when I realized this wasn't about the money. It was about fear. Fear that she'd lose her independence. Fear that accepting help would make her weak. Fear that one day, I'd throw it back in her face. I told her, "I don't want to resent you. That's why I'm bringing it up now. I'm not keeping score. I just want us both to breathe a little easier." She nodded, but she didn't say much after that. And to be honest, I still don't know where we stand. We're in this strange space now, where everything looks fine on the outside, but inside, I feel like we're walking on eggshells. I want to do the right thing. I want her to feel safe and equal and respected. But I also want her to trust me enough to accept help when it's offered with love. The truth is, I don't know what the right answer is. I've been thinking about it constantly, at work, in the shower, while brushing my teeth. I replay our conversations in my head, wondering if I said something wrong, if I should have stayed quiet, if maybe I overstepped. But deep down, I still feel like I did the right thing by speaking up. I just don't know what comes next. A week passed after that last talk, and I wish I could say things got better. But they didn't. She wasn't angry. She wasn't cold. In fact, she was acting totally normal, on the surface. We were still going on date nights, still watching shows together, still joking around. But underneath it all, something had changed. We started feeling more like two people pretending to be okay, rather than two people actually being okay. I could feel it in the little things. Like how she didn't hold my hand as much, or how she'd leave for work a little earlier, come home a little later, say she had grading to catch up on more than usual. I didn't want to push, so I let it slide. But in my gut, I knew she was still struggling, emotionally, and definitely financially. Then one evening, we were at the grocery store, picking up stuff for dinner. At the checkout, the total came to just over $90. Without even thinking, I pulled out my card and paid. No big deal. She didn't say anything at first, just smiled. But later that night, she brought it up. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know," I replied. "I wanted to." She looked at me, her face calm but serious. "That's not how we do things." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. That's not how we do things. I wasn't trying to change our system. I was just trying to take something off her plate. I asked, "Are we keeping track of love now?" She went quiet for a moment, then said, "It's not about love. It's about fairness." I didn't know how to respond to that. In her mind, Paying her share was the fair thing. But to me, fairness didn't mean splitting everything equally. It meant splitting things in a way that actually worked for both of us. But I also knew that no amount of logic would change how she felt. A few days later, I noticed something on the kitchen table. It was a printout from her bank. A balance summary. Her savings account had less than $500 in it. I didn't snoop. She'd left it out by accident, and I just happened to see it. But my heart sank. I knew she used to have a few thousand in savings. And now, it was almost gone. She was dipping into her future just to maintain this system we had. This equal thing that only looked fair on paper. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, what if she has an emergency? What if something breaks? What if she needs to fly home for something? What if she just wants to take a breath and not worry for once? And here I was, watching her burn through her savings just to split the rent with someone who earns triple her income. It didn't sit right with me. So the next morning, I sat down and wrote her a letter. I didn't want to make her feel backed into a corner. I didn't want another tense conversation that ended in silence. So I wrote it down. I told her I loved her. I told her I respected her independence. I told her I was proud of how strong she was, how hard she worked. But I also told her that strength doesn't mean carrying the entire weight alone. I said, I want to take care of you when I can. Not because I think you're weak, but because I think you're worth it. I ended it by saying, you don't have to say yes. You don't have to change anything. But I want you to know the offer is there, whenever you're ready. I left the note on her pillow. That evening, she didn't say anything about it. We had dinner. We watched a movie. We went to bed. I thought maybe she hadn't read it. But just as we were about to fall asleep, she whispered, I read your letter. I waited. She didn't say anything else for a while. Then finally she said, it was beautiful, and it scared me. I asked, why? She said, because I want to say yes. But part of me feels like if I let you help, I'm giving up control. I turned to face her and said, maybe it's not about giving up control. Maybe it's about trusting someone else to hold some of it with you. She didn't answer, but she reached for my hand under the covers. And for the first time in weeks, I felt her really touch me. Not just physically, but emotionally, like a wall had finally started to come down. We didn't solve everything that night. There was no big breakthrough, no promises made, no decisions set in stone. But something shifted. She saw that I wasn't trying to save her. I was trying to share the load. And maybe, just maybe, that's what love actually looks like. After that night, things between us felt different. Not in a bad way, just more open. Softer, maybe, like we'd peeled back a layer we hadn't touched before. She didn't give me an answer right away about changing how we split the bills. And I didn't ask again. I wanted to give her space. The ball was in her court now, and I was okay waiting. I just hoped she knew I meant every word in that letter. A few days later, we were sitting on the couch, eating takeout after a long day. She looked tired, like really tired. The kind of tired that doesn't just come from lack of sleep but from carrying too much for too long. She poked at her food for a bit and then said quietly, I paid my student loan late this month. I looked over. Why? She shrugged. Didn't have enough left after rent and groceries. I thought I could move some things around. But she trailed off. I set down my fork and reached for her hand. Hey, you don't have to do this alone. She squeezed my hand back but didn't say anything. That moment stuck with me. Because even after everything we'd talked about, even after the letter, she still felt like she had to fight this battle by herself. Like letting me in meant giving something up. It made me realize this wasn't just about money. It was about identity. She had worked hard to get where she was. Becoming a teacher wasn't easy. She loved her students, and she was proud of the life she had built. She didn't want anyone, especially not me, to think she needed saving. And I respected that more than she knew. But still, I hated seeing her like this. A few weeks later, I came up with an idea. Instead of forcing a full change to how we split everything, I offered a middle ground. I created a shared spreadsheet, just a simple one. I showed how we could break down our monthly costs by percentage based on our incomes. I said, it's not me paying for everything. It's just adjusting the scale so that we both have breathing room. She stayed at the screen for a long time. Then she looked at me and asked, "Do you really want to do this?" I nodded. I wouldn't offer if I didn't. She closed her eyes for a second, then said, "Okay, let's try it. But if it starts to feel weird or uneven, we talk about it again. Deal?" Deal. And that was it. It didn't feel dramatic. There were no fireworks or big emotional speeches. Just two people choosing to shift together. The first month we used the new system, I could already see a change in her. She wasn't stressed about rent day. She didn't avoid looking at her bank app. She started going out with friends again, buying little things for herself here and there, like a new pair of shoes she'd been eyeing or coffee from her favorite cafe without guilt. She smiled more, laughed easier. She just relaxed. One night, we were sitting outside on the balcony. She had her legs on my lap, and we were just watching the city lights. She turned to me and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I made it hard." I looked at her and smiled. "You didn't make it hard. Life did. You were just trying to survive it." She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. "Well, now I feel like we're living it together." And that made every awkward talk, every uncomfortable silence, and every scary moment worth it. It wasn't perfect. There were still times she hesitated to let me pay for dinner. Sometimes, she'd Venmo me back for something small and I'd just roll my eyes. But we were learning, growing, finding our version of fairness, not the one that looked good on paper, but the one that actually worked in real life. And honestly, that felt more like love than anything else we'd done before. One evening, out of nowhere, she brought home a little envelope and handed it to me. Inside was a handwritten card. It said, "Thank you for helping me breathe. I didn't know how heavy everything had gotten until you helped me carry it. I love you." I still keep that card in my desk drawer. Every time I feel unsure or wonder if I did the right thing by bringing up the whole money topic in the first place, I take it out and read it. Because at the end of the day, relationships aren't just about love or attraction or date nights. They are about being there, really being there, for the other person. Even when it's awkward. Even when they don't know how to ask for help. Even when the world tells them they have to carry everything alone to be strong. Sometimes, love means holding the weight together. And that's exactly what we chose to do. Months passed, and things between us slowly settled into something that felt good, something that felt right. It wasn't just the money that had changed. It was the way we handled everything now. We talked more. We checked in with each other. We paid attention to the little things, like whether the other person seemed tired or withdrawn. We'd grown past the surface-level stuff into something deeper, something real. There were no more awkward silences when the rent was due. No more guilt over who paid for dinner. No more pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. But even with things going well, I'll be honest, sometimes I still wondered if I had made a mistake by ever bringing it up. Not because I regretted the change, but because I knew it had shaken something in her. Her pride, maybe, or her sense of balance. Then one night, out of the blue, she brought it up. We were in the kitchen making dinner, music playing softly in the background. She was stirring something on the stove when she said, "You know, I used to think needing help meant I was failing." I looked up from chopping vegetables. "Yeah." She nodded, still focused on the pan. Like, if I couldn't handle all my bills on my own, then I wasn't really grown. I wasn't really independent. And that scared me. I stayed quiet. I wanted to let her finish. But then I realized something. She went on. I wasn't failing. I was just trying to survive in a system that's broken. Teachers don't get paid what they should. And I was pretending that splitting things 50-50 made me strong. But really, it just made me tired. She finally turned and looked at me. "You gave me room to breathe. And you didn't ask for anything back. That's not keeping me. That's love." I walked over and wrapped my arms around her. "That's all I ever wanted you to see." She smiled against my chest. "I see it now." From that moment on, there were no more doubts. We kept living our lives. Together, we still split things, just in a way that made sense for us. Some months, she paid more when she had extra. Other times, I took care of more when she needed space to catch up. It wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about partnership. Eventually, We moved into a slightly bigger apartment. Nothing fancy, but it had more sunlight and a small balcony where we could drink coffee in the mornings. We adopted a cat. She named him Fig. He was loud, needy, and a total menace, but we loved him. One Sunday morning, we sat on the balcony with Fig curled between us. She looked at me and said, "I think I was afraid that if I let you help, you'd lose respect for me." I laughed gently. "That's the exact opposite of what happened. I've never respected you more." She didn't reply right away. She just looked out at the sky and said, "It feels good not to pretend anymore." I nodded. "Yeah, it does." And that's what I hope people understand when they talk about relationships and money and fairness. Fair doesn't always mean equal. It means balanced. It means real. It means figuring out what works for the both of you, not what looks right from the outside. We're still learning. We still argue over silly things sometimes. We still have moments when we fall back into old habits. But we come back to each other. We choose each other. Every single time. And maybe that's what love really is. It's not just flowers or big gestures. It's not perfect 50-50 splits or keeping score. It's listening, adapting, being brave enough to say, "This isn't working for me," and soft enough to hear when your partner says, "It's not working for me either." It's helping someone carry the weight, not because they asked, not because they are weak, but because you can, because you want to, because you're in this together. If I had never brought it up, we might still be smiling on the outside while quietly crumbling underneath. I'm glad I said something. I'm glad I gave her space to come around. And I'm glad we figured it out, not just as individuals, but as a team. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If you've ever struggled with money in your relationship or felt like fair didn't feel so fair after all, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. Maybe your experience will help someone else feel less alone. And hey, if you like this story, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss the next one. See you next time.